Nicaragua is one of those countries whose geography almost seems designed for drama. It is the largest country in Central America by land area, stretching from the Pacific Ocean in the west to the Caribbean Sea in the east. Its landscape includes volcanic chains, enormous lakes, fertile plains, tropical forests, and long coastlines shaped by two very different oceans. As of 2026, Nicaragua has a population of just over 7 million people, making it the third most populous country in Central America after Guatemala and Honduras. But size and population numbers only begin the story. Nicaragua has long stood at a crossroads, between North and South America, between the Spanish-speaking Pacific world and the more Caribbean-influenced Atlantic coast, and between extraordinary natural potential and recurring political upheaval. On a map, Nicaragua sits between Honduras to the north and Costa Rica to the south. To the west is the Pacific Ocean, while to the east lies the Caribbean Sea, part of the Atlantic Ocean. It also shares maritime borders with El Salvador and Colombia. This position has shaped Nicaragua's identity for centuries. The country has often been imagined as a natural corridor between oceans, a place where trade routes, empires, armies, and political ambitions could pass through. Before the Panama Canal became the dominant link between the Atlantic and Pacific, Nicaragua was seriously considered as a possible canal route because of its lakes and waterways. That geographic importance helped make the country strategically valuable, but it also exposed it to foreign interference and internal conflict. Nicaragua's capital and largest city is Managua, located near the southwestern shore of Lake Managua. With more than 1 million residents in the city itself, Managua is the political, economic, and administrative center of the country. Unlike some Latin American capitals built around a preserved colonial core, Managua has a more fragmented urban landscape. Earthquakes, political instability, and rapid growth have all shaped the city. Its importance, however, is unmistakable. Government institutions, universities, businesses, and transportation networks concentrate there. For many Nicaraguans, Managua represents opportunity, migration, and modern life. At the same time, it reflects the country's challenges: inequality, informal employment, infrastructure pressures, and the enduring effects of natural disasters and political crisis. Nicaragua is often called the land of lakes and volcanoes, and the nickname is more than a tourist slogan. The country is home to major freshwater lakes, including Lake Nicaragua, one of the largest lakes in Latin America. The Pacific side is marked by a chain of volcanoes, some active, rising dramatically from plains and lockshores. These volcanoes are both a threat and a gift. Eruptions and earthquakes have caused destruction, but volcanic soils are extremely fertile. That fertility has helped make Nicaragua known as the breadbasket of Central America, with some of the region's richest arable land. Agriculture remains central to national life, producing crops such as coffee, sugar, beans, corn, and cattle-related products. Geography, in Nicaragua, is not background scenery. It is the foundation of food, settlement, wealth, and risk. The country's natural wealth extends far beyond farms and volcanoes. In the northeast lies the Bozawas Biosphere Reserve, one of the largest tropical rainforests in the Americas after the Amazon. This region is part of a vast ecological zone that contains enormous biological diversity, including rare plants, birds, mammals, reptiles, and insects. Nicaragua's warm tropical climate, varied elevations, and mixture of wetlands, forests, lakes, and coastlines create many habitats in a relatively compact area. This biodiversity has helped make Nicaragua an increasingly attractive destination for ecotourism and adventure travel. Visitors come for volcano boarding, surfing, colonial towns, wildlife, islands, and rainforest exploration. But the same natural areas face pressure from deforestation, agricultural expansion, illegal settlement, and weak environmental enforcement. Nicaragua's population is multi-ethnic, and that diversity is especially visible when comparing the Pacific and Caribbean sides of the country. Spanish is the official language and is spoken by most of the population, particularly in the western and central regions. Many Nicaraguans identify as mestizo, with mixed indigenous and European ancestry. There are also indigenous communities, people of European heritage, and Afro-descendant populations. On the Caribbean coast, the cultural landscape is distinct. Communities there include groups with their own languages and traditions, and English or English-based Creoles are also used in some areas. This eastern region, historically known as Mestiza, has long had cultural and political links to the wider Caribbean world. As a result, Nicaragua is not culturally uniform. It is a country where Spanish colonial influences, indigenous heritage, African roots, and Caribbean traditions coexist and sometimes collide. Long before European conquest, the area now called Nicaragua was home to indigenous societies with their own political systems, trade networks, and spiritual traditions. In the 16th century, Spanish forces conquered much of the region, bringing it into the Spanish Empire. Colonization introduced new cities, Catholic institutions, forced labor systems, and dramatic demographic change due to violence, disease, and exploitation. Nicaragua became part of the broader Spanish colonial world in Central America. Like other colonies, it was shaped by extraction and hierarchy, with Spanish elites at the top and indigenous and mixed populations bearing much of the burden. Nicaragua declared independence from Spain in 1821, along with much of Central America. But independence did not mean immediate stability. The young country inherited social divisions, regional rivalries, and weak institutions. The Caribbean coast followed a very different historical path from the Pacific side. For centuries, the Mestiza region had stronger ties to Britain and the Caribbean than to Spanish-controlled Nicaragua. It existed as a kingdom under British protection from the 17th century until the 19th century. This history created a separate identity, with political arrangements, trade patterns, and cultural influences distinct from the rest of the country. In 1860, the Treaty of Managua brought the Mestiza into union with Nicaragua, while an earlier agreement, the White Cruz Treaty of 1859, placed its northernmost part under Honduras. These treaties were not just diplomatic footnotes. They shaped borders, autonomy debates, ethnic relations, and ongoing tensions between the central government and Caribbean communities. Nicaragua's east-west divide is rooted in this history. After independence, Nicaragua experienced repeated cycles of political unrest, foreign intervention, and authoritarian rule. Its strategic location made it attractive to outside powers, including the United States, which occupied Nicaragua at different points in the early 20th century. The country also endured fiscal crises and internal struggles between rival political factions. One of the most important chapters was the rise of the Somoza family dictatorship, which dominated Nicaragua for decades with support from powerful allies and control over state institutions. Opposition grew over time, especially as inequality, repression, and corruption became harder to ignore. By the 1960s and 1970s, revolutionary movements gained strength, culminating in the Nicaraguan Revolution. The Sandinista National Liberation Front overthrew the Somoza regime in 1979, creating hopes for social reform and national renewal. The revolution did not bring peace. In the 1980s, Nicaragua became one of the key battlegrounds of the Cold War in Latin America. The Sandinista government pursued literacy campaigns, land reform, health programs, and a more state-led economic model. But it also faced armed opposition from the Contras, a rebel movement backed by the United States. The Contra War devastated the country, draining resources, damaging infrastructure, displacing communities, and deepening political polarization. For Nicaraguans, the conflict was not an abstract ideological struggle. It affected daily life through military service, shortages, fear, grief, and economic crisis. The 1980s left a powerful legacy, memories of resistance for some, memories of repression for others, and a national political culture still shaped by the wounds of war. In theory, Nicaragua is a unitary presidential republic. In practice, its political system has changed dramatically in recent years. Daniel Ortega, a former revolutionary leader, returned to the presidency in 2007. Since then, Nicaragua has experienced what many observers describe as significant democratic backsliding. Power has become increasingly concentrated, opposition groups have faced pressure, and independent media and civil society have been restricted. In 2018, large protests erupted, initially sparked by proposed social security changes but quickly expanding into broader anger over governance and repression. The state response was severe, and the crackdown deepened Nicaragua's political crisis. After the 2021 election, the country was widely described as an authoritarian dictatorship, and by 2026 the next national elections were effectively cancelled. Nicaragua's revolutionary language now coexists with one-party dominance and shrinking political freedoms. Economically, Nicaragua is a developing country with serious structural challenges. It has one of the lowest GDP per capita levels in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in nominal terms and when adjusted for purchasing power. Agriculture remains important, but the economy also depends on manufacturing, remittances, services, tourism, and informal work. Fertile land gives Nicaragua real productive potential, yet poverty, underinvestment, corruption, and political instability limit growth. In 2025, Nicaragua was ranked as the second most corrupt country in Latin America by the Corruption Perceptions Index, behind only Venezuela. Corruption matters because it affects everything from public services and business confidence to trust in institutions. For ordinary people, economic hardship often means migration, reliance on family abroad, or work in unstable conditions. Yet Nicaragua is not defined only by conflict or poverty. Its cultural influence is remarkable. The country has produced major literary figures, most famously Rubén Darío, a poet whose work helped transform Spanish-language literature through modernismo. Nicaraguan folklore, music, dance, food, and religious traditions reflect the blending of indigenous, Spanish, African, and Caribbean influences. Cuisine varies by region, from corn-based dishes and beans to coastal flavors shaped by coconut, seafood, and Caribbean ingredients. Nicaragua is also internationally connected. It is a founding member of the United Nations and belongs to organizations such as the Non-Aligned Movement, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. These memberships reflect the country's place in regional and global politics, even as its domestic situation remains contested. Nicaragua is a country of sharp contrasts. It has some of the most fertile land in Central America, yet many citizens face poverty. It has magnificent lakes, volcanoes, rainforests, and coastlines, yet those ecosystems face growing pressure. It has a revolutionary history built around liberation, yet today it is widely criticized for authoritarian rule. It is culturally rich, geographically strategic, and environmentally extraordinary, but politically fragile. To understand Nicaragua is to see how geography, empire, revolution, foreign intervention, and modern authoritarianism all overlap in one nation. Its future will depend not only on its natural resources, but on whether its people can build institutions that match the depth of its history and the richness of its land. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.